everyone, to the Voice podcast. We're on episode 5 already. Today we have another great topic. It's going to be something, we've talked about that we think is definitely something that's overlooked, but incredibly important in the women's workwear, personal protective equipment, or PPE mechanical trades. So we have some great contacts here today in the women's workwear space. Today we'll be talking about unique needs regarding safety gear and work attire, how they're often a sideline conversation. So we'll get right into it today. I'm going to start off with you, Alicia. If you can just do a quick introduction, who you're with, and anything you'd like to mention to our listeners today.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us. I'm excited for this discussion with Jody, Diane, and yourself. So, my name is Alicia Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Cover Gals, which is also known as the Female Coverall. And I've been in the mining industry for 24 years, so I had challenges with men's workwear, which is why the Cover Gal was born, really based out of my own frustration and having to wear men's coveralls underground, which didn't fit or function.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alicia. And I'll pass it over to you, Jody.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for having us here today. This is so exciting. My name's Jody Huttner. I am the founder of Helga Wear Inc. I did a bit of time in fieldwork and engineering. That's where I discovered that none of the PPE was made to fit my body. And being a lifelong sewer, that bothered me to no end. Also, from the point of view of being a mechanical engineer, the fact that we don't design product for women's bodies really bothered me. And I thought that PPE would be a really great Trojan horse to expose this issue. And I also thought naively 10 years ago that it would be a smash hit business idea. I'd sell the business in 5 years for millions and go back to engineering, a happy woman and successful entrepreneur. But that's not how the story went. And yet still, I wouldn't regret a moment of it. And I'm so happy to be here with you all talking about it to this day.
Great. Thanks so much, Jody. And then I'll pass it off to you lastly, Diane.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I just wanted to say that this all came about for me with my daughter's experience when she went to masonry school. We went to go get her workwear and found out like we couldn't find it, and if we did, it didn't fit her properly, or it didn't exist, period. So, and that's how this all came about for the Dirty Seahorse.
Awesome. Thank you again, ladies, so much for being here. So again, today's episode is fitting in, redefining women's workwear, specifically in mechanical contracting, but again, obviously it'll apply to the construction industry as a whole. So Alicia, I'm going to start off with you. So what are some common challenges you think women face when it comes to finding appropriate workwear in this traditionally male-dominated industry like mechanical contracting?
Oh my gosh. So I think if you just look at the background stories behind the Dirty Seahorse and Helga and myself, I mean, all companies were born out of our own frustration in finding suitable solutions. Simply when I walked into the safety store back when I started in the industry in 2000, like there was absolutely nothing for women. So I think that is the problem, lack of options for women. And then I think, fast forward, a number of companies are coming forward and making women's workwear available. But I think when we look at distribution or large safety partners or safety supply stores, their lack of financial commitment to making those products available on the shelves for the women. So yes, our brands exist, but there's also that other level of support where, safety supply stores and organizations need to invest in actually having the product available for them, right? Because as the need grows, we can't be everything to everybody. There needs to be commitment on the industry's part too to make our products available.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Alicia. Diane or Jody, anything you wanted to add to that? I know Jody's just like, I'm ready.
You go ahead, Jody.
Really? Oh, right. So, yeah, Alicia, you're hitting the nail on the head there. And also in terms of accessibility, when it comes to the women, a lot of the times they're expecting their employer to provide these things. They don't want to pay out of pocket for something that they're supposed to be supplied with. So what are they going to do? Are they going to go and bother their boss, bother their supervisors to bring in proper fit PPE for women? There are many, many reasons why women aren't doing that. So, and the options the women are left with is try and desperately find something that fits you out of pocket. Or like, just to me, that right there, that is That is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then not only the cost, because then they've got the pink tax, which we can talk about from the term point of view of manufacturers and suppliers, because yeah, it does. It costs more. Costs us more to make, quite a
Yeah.
bit more. Anyway, we don't have to get into that at this moment. But to address your question, yes, there's not a lot of supply. It costs more. Their bosses are supposed to, their employer is supposed to provide it in a lot of the times. So these are all, yeah, huge challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just to go on that, Diane, I'll pass it to you. Is so yeah, obviously we have the issue of the cost, the getting it to the woman. It's obviously not a huge market necessarily, but also you have to focus on, the fit, the certain characteristics of the PP that are going to work for the women. Like what is something that your company does, Diane, to ensure that, it's also the proper
Fit.
sizing and what women fit for those in the trades.
With us, it was all about, like I said, with Chantel, she ended up going to work with like oversized clothing and stuff. So with us, what I ended up doing was I took her and had her actually fitted for her measurements. So that way, then what we did was we actually created a female profile as opposed to like a man's resized scaled down version.
Yeah.
So that way we made sure we got the proper fit. And then from there, we did interviews with women in skilled trades. And then they chose the features they wanted. And then we translated them into the garments that they wanted.
Yeah. Nice. And what about you, Jody and Alicia? Same kind of situation when you all were getting into this space, making sure that it was a proper fit and obviously going over the obvious hurdles as mentioned before with the costs and getting it out. What are some other hurdles or things your companies looked into to make sure that this PP would work for women in the trades?
For Alicia, do you want to take it or do you want me to jump in?
I'm jumping. I'll go in after you.
Oh, okay. So for me, from terms of design perspective, I tried to bring in some ethical engineering practices. And to start, we used all the traditional textiles knowledge for a woman's one piece because this technology exists. This is nothing new to the
Yeah.
textiles industry. Making gear to fit women is not new. So we started there, but then turns out putting prototypes into the field and having them actually tested by tradeswomen's bodies need a little bit more allowances here and there. We are not, and also like I think our Canadian body data modeling needs serious updating because this is something that changes over time.
Yeah.
It's racialized, it's gendered, and it changes over time. So
Yeah.
approaching it from almost looking at it with fresh eyes, starting with what we know, and then tweaking it as we go. But I would say the most important thing is to actually use women's body data. Any any standard common to the craft of making whatever item it is for women, and in safety apparel that would be using women's wear grading rules instead of men's wear grading rules, and then field testing on women, basic engineering and design practice, just include them in the design process right from square one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my story is very similar. Diane mentioned measuring her daughter. Well, for me, I actually took my men's coverall to a seamstress here in Sudbury and said, like, let's make this fit and let's make this function. I will never be caught underground with a porta potty with no door, having to take everything off to go to the bathroom. So I need functionality. So we actually did the cover gal for me. So I actually never had intention of creating a product available for other women at that time. I just simply altered my own so that I could work in the industry and feel included and safe. And then from there, women would see that my coverall fit me differently, and because it was different than what they were wearing,
Mhm.
and also the fact that I was drinking water. So that's kind of how we were born. But I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. I mean, it is based on a female body. I think that's the
Mhm.
like that is the foundation here. It is
Mhm.
made for women by women. It's not shrink it and pink it.
Yeah.
And then I think engaging with women in the industry, having focus groups, having
Mhm.
methods to collect feedback,
Yes.
because you're right, Jody,
Absolutely.
not everybody is the same, right? Like, I was talking with Sarah Dovetail, and she was just saying, like, the amount of SKU she has to offer just in her pants,
Yeah.
because women want different fits, right? So
Yeah.
it's not one size fits all. And I think taking it further, there is the cultural aspect. And I didn't realize that until I went to Brazil to engage with a mining company, and I brought like our workwear samples, and just the women went to try it on and they actually started to chuckle. They're like, these are Canadian fit products. So there's the cultural aspect where we're like, okay, we have to design not just to different women's body types, but different cultural types too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. That's again something that, yeah, you don't really think of or till you're right into the prototypes, the getting out there and stuff. So thanks for sharing that, ladies.
Mhm.
So again, we talked about obviously, getting this workwear to ladies, those who define themselves as females. But what roles do companies play or employers play in supporting women by providing appropriate workwear? Like, or what role should they play? Because I know, Jody, I'm going to go to you first in our pre-con call. This was something you were really talking about, the best practices companies should have. So what roles would you like to see, these employers and companies have in supporting women by getting these workwear and some things they should be including in their best practices?
Amazing. Wow. Well, it would be incredible if every company would actually ask the questions
Yeah.
and not turn a blind eye,
Yeah.
make sure that the feedback and reporting mechanisms aren't broken so
Yeah.
that people aren't fearing retaliation, so that
Yeah.
even allies can speak up because it's not just affecting women.
Yeah.
This is not having proper fit PPE impacts everybody,
Yeah.
right? And just opening up the conversation to this one more body type is going to improve everything for everybody. So
Yes.
when it comes to best practices, like everybody at every stage of the game has a role to play, but as an employer, you can do things like talk to your procurement, make sure they're asking the suppliers of all of their PPE, do they offer women's PPE? And if they say yes, then dig a little bit deeper. Ask how have they included women in the design of this item of PPE? So
Yeah.
ask if they've actually used women's data, women's body data, no matter what the item of PPE is. If they've used a unisex model, it would be interesting to question them on what their rationale behind. If they've
Yes.
maybe, used a unisex model but still included women in extensive field testing and through feedback learned that okay, it does fit some women. But
Yes.
so opening up the conversation and digging a little bit deeper in terms of the supply and manufacturer side, because right now we've got practices like manufacturers down labeling men's PPE, so the pink it and shrink it right across
Yes.
the board. We offer women's sizes. Be very careful when you hear women's sizes, because that
Yes.
typically means it's a men's item that's just been relabeled and called women's size. So we
Yes.
need to run these practices out of the manufacturing industry by asking for proof of women included in design. And then one additional piece that's going to help everybody across the board, ask suppliers for a statement of fit or some sort of guidance telling you
Yes.
what proper fit looks like or should look like for
Yeah.
this item. Everybody knows what respirators are, like the fit process for respirators.
Yeah.
You actually
Yeah.
have a fit test you go through, and it becomes very apparent if you're not going to be able to perform your job and get a seal on your respirator. Well,
Yeah.
every single item of PPE should have a very basic mobility test. If you can't perform these things, you don't have the right fit. Your mobility is being sacrificed. That's where I would love to see industry move. And at the
Yeah.
very basics, we could probably just start with saying, can everyone commit to proper fit safety? Can we start this dialogue and bring some more structure around proper fit safety gear?
Yeah. So, anything you wanted to add to that, Diane? So, best practices you would like to see in the industry regarding women's PPE and workwear?
I just want to add something to what Jody's saying. And the other thing too, that these industries need to understand, because they're so concerned about their bottom dollar, okay?
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll buy men's workwear as opposed to women's, but they don't understand they're paying for it in the long run anyways, because when they have worksite injuries, like 40% of all injuries on work sites are due to ill-fitting workwear. So they're
Oh,
paying for
wow.
it one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Alicia, I
And
see you
actually paying
nodding
more,
your head.
Diane, right? Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're paying more in the long run, right? And I think what they also don't realize are women are actually bringing the garments home and modifying it, right? Like look at the CSA report and the data
yeah.
that Anya unveiled. I mean,
Mhm.
modifying harnesses, like 5-point harnesses, like those are tested, and they're modifying them. It's even like FR garments. If you're
Mhm.
modifying those at home, chances are you're not using the proper thread too. So I think at the basic level, companies need to be enforcing through a policy, and when they go out to RFP to these manufacturers, there needs to be a requirement in the RFP to specify female fit workwear.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, ladies, for training. And just again to kind of to kind of keep with that
We are
conversation.
nodding emphatically.
I know, yeah. I love it. I feel like if we were all together in the same room, we'd just be like, yeah, high
High
five each other right now. Yeah. It's just so
Rachel,
great because,
can I
yes,
add one more thing to that?
of course.
Okay. And this is something that I raised to Parliament when I was there on Thursday. Okay. This is the way I put it to them so they understand. Okay. Okay. When people wear their blue jeans, they fit. Okay. So why is it when PPE doesn't have to fit? Okay. And one size fits all, which is supposed to save on injuries and prevent and save lives. So that's my question is why is it that one size is okay? Like one size fits all is perfectly fine for PPE because it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, look at the jeans section at Mark's Work Warehouse. See how many styles and slim fit
Yeah.
and boot
Yeah.
cut and all of this modern
Yeah.
fit. Like, how come we cannot bring some of that technology into our safety gear?
Yeah. And so, Diane, I'll ask you just to expand a little bit more what you just touched on, just so everyone listening has the full backstory and stuff. So, obviously, with our Women in Mechanical Contracting group and doing podcasts and stuff like this, it's obviously just not about getting the workwear out there, getting available. There's some other things, we're doing with the committee and other companies, and that includes going to Parliament, meeting with MPs. So, do you mind just sharing the background on
Sure.
that so those
Sure.
listening can get filled in a little bit?
I had a meeting last Thursday, okay, and I had the meeting with Michelle Ferrari, Anna Roberts, and Anne Marie Folk, and they sit on the committee for the status of women. And what they did is they actually were very interested and they wanted to know all the issues that women have with their workwear and PPE. So I went through and I explained it to them. I'll use my daughter as an example. She did great. She did terrific when she was at trade school. They got her all the tools, they got her everything necessary. But the minute she set foot on her job site, she felt very frustrated. She felt embarrassed because she would get teased on the job because her footwear was not proper fit. Like she would walk through the mud, her boots would stick in the mud. She'd just keep walking. Same with her legs and her arms. She had flipper arms and flipper feet, and her crotch was to her knees.
Oh, wow.
So that's what she had to contend with. Like
Yeah.
the minute she set foot on that job site, she was already set up for failure.
Yeah.
Mm,
No, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Diane. And Alicia and Jody, anything to add? Like again, obviously, we're here promoting the workwear itself, but anything you'd like to see, whether it be provincial or federal government do to kind of help, give, yourselves, either the manufacturers some help or those buying, whether it be the employees or employers. Is there anything you all would like to see or, want the public or those listening to be aware of to, again, not to get politics involved, but obviously if the word gets out there to help. So Jody, I'll go to you again. I see you nodding your head like I'm ready, get calling me. So anything you'd like to see,
Mhm.
Jody?
Yeah, I think I'm getting feister. I'm in my mid 40s now,
There
and
you go. Yeah.
there's just there's this I don't know, stank in me that never was here
Yeah.
wasn't here 10 years ago. I would love to see us start to approach this from a human rights basis. The basic right to psychological and physical safety on site.
Yeah.
The basic right to flush toilets and running water.
Yes.
So how can we it's almost like it's not such a subtle gatekeeping if we're not even doing that. We are we're essentially gatekeeping women out by these very basic things, and yet it's such an elephant in the room. So I would love to gaze a politician in the eye and have that conversation.
Yeah. No, that's great
Mhm.
for sure. Anything you'd like to add to
Well,
that, Alicia?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we have Minister McNaughton here in Ontario, right, who, put
Mhm.
regulation in place around proper fitting workwear for women and proper bathroom facilities, although
Mhm.
it was seemed to be geared towards construction. And I certainly thank him, and I've been engaged with him and his team kind of through that process and through that announcement. However, for me, it's one thing to put that policy in place, but what is the government doing to hold organizations accountable to that regulation or
Mhm.
legislation? Are the
Mhm.
inspectors enforcing it when they
Mhm.
go to site or go to these different workplaces? So it's one thing to put the policy in
Mhm.
place or regulation legislation, but how are we holding companies accountable, and are there
Mhm.
consequences to them not following it. So it was a follow-up that I did present to Minister McNaughton before he, stepped away, and
Yeah.
certainly involved in challenging
Right on.
organizations.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. Yeah, put it out there, but what are you doing to make sure it happens?
Was there an answer?
So I actually did recently connect with through a workplace safety north event, and so they are going to be making it on checklists, right? So when the inspectors go out, they'll be checking for proper fit workwear and PPE. But that's in Ontario. Why can this not be Canada wide? Like, to me, it's not
Yes.
a provincial, like by
Yeah.
province. This is a blanket across the
Mhm.
country. It's a federal.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Again, we're talking from, I'm in Ontario, and I try to keep our lens a Canadian lens with being with MCA Canada. What How does the availability and quality of women's workwear and PPE vary across different regions or sectors within the industry that you all are seeing? Because again, I'm just thinking, I grew up in construction and I did it through school, and I'm just thinking, my summer job, I just wanted those cool high vis pants where you could have the zipper come off and have the little screen mesh thing. But again, there's obviously more than just, what I think is a typical construction worker. Is there obviously different variations you're seeing when different industries or regions that your workwear companies are looking to address?
Is
I
your
mean,
question? Can you elaborate on your question a little bit more? Are you insinuating? Are you asking? Are there any industries that are further ahead in terms of adopting proper fit PPE? Or
Yeah, like
okay.
that, or just, again,
Mhm.
or like expanding your line. Like, are you all looking to expand your line as well? Because I know you obviously have CoverGall. Like, is your workwear for like all different industries, different trades, or like, are you all, sorry, I hate to say guys because we're talking about female, are you ladies looking to, address more industries, or yeah, like what's your approach when you're picking, let's say, your products? I would say, like, are you focusing on, what the need is, or are you kind of looking at it as a broad, this, because I know Alicia talked about different cultures and stuff, but what about the different trades, mechanics or plumbers and stuff, like their workwear might wear a different way because they're on their knees, for example, fixing plumbing, or electricians, you're doing different things. Like, how are you all kind of, it's a tough, I'm just saying, it's a broad area that you have to cover, right? So are there some areas you're focusing on, or how are you all trying to make sure that it's not just fitting women, but it's also for that subclass of the trades, what they're working on? Is there stuff you all are looking at in regards to that?
Alicia, you're doing the best on this front. Why don't you take
Yeah.
this? So I'm assuming, Diane, I'm sorry, I don't know your gear as well as I know Alicia's.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, wicked.
Well,
No
I
offense.
think, to be honest, like, we started off as the cover gal because that was the garment I wore every day, right? So
Mhm,
we started off as a coverall, but when we discovered that we had a product because women were asking for it, we then realized that not everybody wears the coverall, right?
mhm,
And so our product line grew out of women coming to us saying, great, I love the cover gal, but I wear pants and shirts, or I wear a
Yeah.
parka and a hoodie and all these different pieces.
Yeah.
So that's how our product line grew. But with that, we came to realize that our garments were transferable across all of these industries. It just meant, were there different fabric requirements, different color requirements, different reflective tape requirements? And then I think, as you pointed to, Rachel, depending on the trade, are there features or functionality in the garments that you
mhm,
need? But it's also tough being, I think, one of our three companies. You can't be everything to everybody. And I think
mhm,
that was a mistake that, we made early on, trying to have every color, every fabric,
mhm,
every reflective tape available.
Yeah.
And
mhm,
before you know it, you have a little of a lot.
Yeah.
And
mhm,
so,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we
Mhm.
stepped back and we said, okay, let's focus on, like, where is our market, and what do
mhm,
we want to go after? So, our focus is more industrial, more, reflective, high vis. And then we'll have the opportunity to work with clients because they identify needs within their organization that they don't see. So we'll do custom workwear programs. And now we're moving to kind of inclusive workwear because I think there was mentioned earlier, this is not just a gender issue, it's a everybody issue. And so
mhm,
Mhm.
that's what we're
Mhm.
starting to tackle now, is
mhm,
making inclusive solutions for everybody, because there are different cultures in the country, different sizes, and
mhm.
We actually have, one guy here in Sudbury Ballet, and he wears the cover gown because it just simply fits him better.
Mhm.
Thanks for sharing, Alicia. And then just for the sake of time, I have one question that I really want to ask to make sure all three of you weigh in on, even though I think we kind of touched on it a bit. And Diana, I'm going to go to you first on this one, so be ready.
Okay.
So what advice would you give to women entering, whether it be mechanical contracting in the trades industry, regarding selecting the right workwear and PPE to ensure both comfort and safety? Because I know, Diane, you mentioned the 40% of, workplace excuse me, 40% of, workplace injuries happen because of not improper fitting PPE, looking back on your daughter. So what would you say to, a young female showing up to first day on the job site and, they're, let's say, handed a pair, a high vis, a pair of overalls, whatever it may be, what advice would you give them to make sure, to feel comfortable and safe at work and with their PPE?
What I would tell them is to get a role model or to speak to an influencer, because they already work in the trades and they will honestly give them an honest opinion about what they would recommend.
Mhm.
Yeah. How about you, Jody? Any advice you give to that
Make
first year apprentice?
first year apprentice, be aware. Be
Yeah.
aware that,
Yeah.
trades are so amazing. They're such rewarding careers, but there are real reasons why we haven't seen representation happen like we've seen in the other professions.
Yeah.
So without discouraging a young woman, I would definitely let them know that there are barriers. For example, proper fit safety gear. That is worth you actually talking to your employer about and reporting. Report it to whoever you feel safe reporting it to, but make sure you get proper fit PPE. It's your last line of defense against injury. It's your number one used tool on the job. At least
Yes.
be aware that that's going to be something you're going to have to self-advocate for until we can get a overarching policy in effect, right, women, right? That
Yes.
makes the young women going into the field not even have to worry about that. That protects it above their head. Until we have that in place, in my good conscience, when I'm recommending for young women to go into trades, this is my piece of advice.
Yes. How about you, Alicia? Any advice you wanted to add to
Yeah, I mean,
Diane?
I love Diane's piece, like reach out, kind of like look to somebody who's already in the industry, and, don't be afraid to reach out, because more than not, those that are in the industry want to help and want to support. I think, get involved in organizations that are out there, such as, yourself, Rachel, because that's where they will feel supported and connected and will get some advice. And I think the last piece is, often your first day on the job, last thing you want to do is rock the boat by saying you need specific workwear.
Yes.
And, women are
Mm,
afraid of reprisal. So what we've been seeing is, women, when they start in the industry, if they find that this workwear is not available to them and they're afraid to use their voice, they will come to us. So for those listening, come to any one of us on the call to our organizations, and we will advocate on your behalf, or we will approach the company from a different angle, giving you support that is
mhm,
removed from you. So we
mhm,
find that we're doing more of that, where women will reach out on our website. If they're
mhm,
comfortable, they'll disclose the company. And then we start to kind of make inroads with that organization to educate and make them aware. So if you're afraid to
mhm,
use your voice, reach out.
mhm.
I feel like we could be here all day talking about it, and
Yeah.
You're
I,
right.
I, and
I think
it's,
so too.
yeah, and I think it was either Jody or Alicia when we had our pre-con call that said, you all are focused on the impact over profit, and I just want to make sure that was said today, because to me that was just
Mhm,
so powerful in hearing that. And like Jody said, when she entered the business in this company, she's like, yeah, I was hoping to be like a 5-year plan. And it's
A
just,
50-year plan.
50, yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy how you all are just, like I said, fighting the good fight. So I just want to thank you all, obviously, for coming on. And I like the word you used, too. I think it was Jody, about, you all do complementary work. You're co-competitors, like you're
Mhm.
all in the same industry. You're all fighting that good fight. So before I wrap anything up, is there any last things you all want to say to those listening? Any asks you have from, our women in mechanical contracting group to those women listening in today, but employees, employers? I'm just going to give everyone one last around the table of anything else I might have missed. Because again, this is such a broad topic, and I didn't even realize going into it. We have our little script, but it's just you go off course. Like I always say, our script is a little guideline, but there's just so many things you don't think of or know of till we start talking. So, Alicia, I'll start with you. Any last closing words and asks you have of anyone listening today?
I think it's again just kind of reiterating the reach out, right? Like just in general, reach out to us to share your feedback. Like our products may not be perfect, right? But we don't know if you don't let us know the challenges you're facing. So reach out to Diane, reach out to Jody, reach out to myself and our organization so that we can better and continuously improve. And I think, the last coming thought is maybe in a few years we'll actually sit all together because it would be great to do a podcast to say like this is where we were
Yes.
in
Mhm.
2024 and this is collectively what we've been able to do. So I would love a reunion podcast.
Oh, for sure. And that's something I always say, with our women mechanical contracting group, I said, like, it's great what we're doing, but I need to see like those tangible things and that end result, I mean, there is no end, but yeah, I think that'd be great. So Jessica, make note of that. We're going to do a reunion special in a year or two.
Yeah.
Diane, how about you? Any closing words or ask or anything you want the listeners to hear?
I was just going to add on the fact that this is such a huge problem. Like it's a global problem. Like I
Mhm.
even have women like reaching out to me, wanting me to ship my product to the UK. That's how bad it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Wow.
really is. It's a global
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it definitely is. Jody, how about you? Any last words before we wrap it up?
Absolutely. We would be
Yeah.
we would be completely remiss if we didn't at least mention that we're all part of an amazing group, a very awesome group called Awesome. The Association of Women's Safety Apparel Manufacturers. So, as an association, we are taking on the burden of vetting suppliers and companies that are making true women's PPE. So, for any employers out there, if you want to contact a hub where you can have access to a multiplicity of different companies that, from grassroots, even when it's not profitable, we have been making gear for women and supplying women's safety gear, contact Awesome, AWSAM. Yeah, and if you have KPIs set on equity, diversity, and inclusion, please consider proper fit PPE as an actionable, tangible, measurable metric to slip in there. You'd be heads and tails above your competitors, and that is my dream, please.
Yes. Awesome.
Mhm.
Again, thank you ladies so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. Like I said, this is an important topic. It's something that needs to be talked about more. I think there's some good things we talked about today that the listeners can hopefully, take back to their companies. The workers can take back to their boss to work Monday. And again, like we're gonna keep on this subject, and it's not just a conversation today. It's gonna be something we're gonna keep an eye on with our committee, continuing the talks with Parliament, with people such as Diane. So again, thank you all for taking the time. I know, again, you all are busy and you did this on a Friday afternoon. We're recording this, and so I really
Morning.
appreciate it. Oh, morning, free, sorry, yeah. Depending where you are, yeah.
Everyone forgets.
Yeah. Well, thanks for spending your Friday morning with us, Jody, and again,
My
Alicia,
pleasure.
Diane, thank you all so much. And that's a wrap on our episode 5 of The Voice podcast, talking about women's workwear. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.